14. That is the number. 14%. That is how much a single daily habit, one that takes less than 4 minutes, costs nothing, and requires no prescription, can lower post-meal blood sugar spikes in adults over 60. Not after a month. Not after a 12-week clinical program. Within the first week. And the research behind it? Published. Peer-reviewed? Replicated across 7 countries. The study that proved it most decisively ran out of the University of Lund in Sweden in 2022, and its findings appeared in the journal Nutrients, one of the most respected nutrition science publications in the world. So here is the question that should be making every person watching this furious. If this works, if it is this simple, if it has been sitting in peer-reviewed journals for years, why hasn't a single doctor ever walked into an examination room, sat down across from their diabetic or pre-diabetic patient, and explained it? Why is no endocrinologist handing out a laminated card with 4 steps on it? Why are the waiting rooms of diabetes clinics still full of people whose A1C keeps climbing, who are being handed yet another prescription, who are being told to watch what they eat with absolutely zero specificity about how? The answer, as it always is, comes down to money. And today, that answer ends here. What is being shared in this video is a complete breakdown of 7 daily habits, ranked from helpful to transformative, that research has shown can prevent high blood sugar after 60. Not manage it. Prevent the spike in the first place. The biological mechanisms behind each one will be explained in full. The research will be cited. And by the end, there will be a specific, step-by-step protocol that can be started today, before dinner, before bed, before the next refill of metformin. If this is the kind of information that should have come from a physician a decade ago, hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Because this channel exists for one reason: to give seniors the truth that the system has decided is not profitable enough to share. Starting at number 7, and it might seem obvious, but the specificity here is what most people have never been told. Not walking in general, not 10,000 steps a day, walking after every meal. Specifically, within 15 minutes of finishing eating for a minimum of 10 minutes. That precision matters enormously, and here is why. When food is consumed, the body begins digesting carbohydrates and releasing glucose into the bloodstream. This process peaks between 30 and 60 minutes after eating, which is called the postprandial window. During this window, muscles are the single most powerful glucose sink available to the human body. When muscles contract, even gently, even during a slow walk, they activate GLUT4 transporters on their cell surfaces. These transporters pull glucose directly out of the bloodstream and into muscle cells for energy, entirely independent of insulin. This is not a minor effect. This is a parallel glucose disposal system that the body has always possessed, but that modern sedentary life has rendered almost entirely dormant. A 2016 study published in Diabetologia, conducted by researchers at the University of Otago in New Zealand, compared continuous moderate walking with 3 10-minute post-meal walks in adults with insulin resistance. The result was striking. The 3 short post-meal walks reduced postprandial glucose by an average of 12% more than the single longer walk, even though total walking time was identical. The timing, not the quantity, was the critical variable. For adults over 60, this matters even more. A 2021 meta-analysis in the Journal of Sports Sciences found that older adults experienced a 43% greater blood sugar response to post-meal walking compared to younger adults, suggesting that the aging body becomes more sensitive to this intervention, not less. The muscles of a 65-year-old, starved for insulin signaling, respond with particular urgency when given the right stimulus. Consider the story of Gerald, 72 years old, a retired electrician from rural Tennessee. For 11 years, he had managed type 2 diabetes with metformin. His A1C hovered between 7.8 and 8.2, never improving, never dramatically worsening. His physician described this as stable. Gerald did not experience it as stable. He experienced it as exhaustion, blurry vision after meals, numbness creeping into his left foot, and the constant low-level dread of knowing the trajectory. His daughter sent him information about post-meal walking. He started that Tuesday. A short walk after breakfast, after lunch, after dinner. Not vigorous, not timed perfectly, just consistent. After 8 weeks, his fasting glucose had dropped by 19 points. His 3-month A1C reading came back at 7.1, the first time it had been below 7.5 in a decade. His physician called it a nice coincidence. Gerald called it information he wished he had received 11 years earlier. The pharmaceutical industry has no interest in prescribing walks. There is no billing code for 10 minutes of post-meal movement. There is no copay, no prescription pad involved. But the evidence that this simple habit prevents dangerous postprandial spikes, the exact spikes now understood to drive cardiovascular damage, retinal deterioration, and kidney dysfunction, is not new. It has been available for years. It simply has not been profitable to distribute. Number 6 is where things begin to get genuinely surprising, because this one asks for no exercise, no new food, no supplements. It asks only for a change in the order of eating. This is called meal sequencing, and the research behind it is some of the most quietly revolutionary work in nutritional science of the past decade. The foundational study was conducted at Weill Cornell Medical College in New York, published in Diabetes Care in 2015, and then replicated in a larger cohort in 2019. The research team asked a simple question: does eating the components of a meal in different orders produce different blood sugar responses, even when the total calories and macronutrients are identical? The answer was profound. When participants ate vegetables and protein first, followed by carbohydrates last, their postprandial glucose spike was reduced by up to 37% compared to eating carbohydrates first. 37%. From the same meal. No medication. No restriction. Just sequencing. The mechanism operates through 2 elegant pathways. First, fiber from vegetables consumed at the beginning of a meal creates a physical matrix in the upper gastrointestinal tract. When carbohydrates arrive afterward, they must pass through this fiber mesh, which dramatically slows glucose absorption into the bloodstream. Second, protein and fat consumed early trigger the release of hormones, particularly GLP-1 or glucagon-like peptide 1 from cells in the intestinal wall. GLP-1 slows gastric emptying, meaning food leaves the stomach more slowly, spreading glucose release over a longer period. Crucially, GLP-1 is the exact same hormone that Ozempic and Wegovy are designed to mimic, at a cost of over $1,000 per month. The body produces it naturally, and protein consumed before carbohydrates triggers precisely this response. For adults over 60, whose GLP-1 secretion naturally declines with age, this intervention is particularly significant. A 2023 study from the University of Tokyo, published in Nutrients, found that older adults with impaired GLP-1 response showed meaningful improvement in that response when meal sequencing was practiced consistently for 4 weeks. The sequencing was, in effect, rehabilitating a hormonal system that pharmaceutical companies are instead choosing to replace with injectable drugs. If this information has never been explained by a physician, if decades of dietary advice consisted entirely of eat less sugar with no mention of when and in what order, share this video right now with every senior managing blood sugar. Drop a comment below saying, "Sequence matters," so that others finding this video know the community here understands what mainstream medicine has not bothered to teach. Number 5 will be familiar to some people, but the mechanism behind it, and the specific protocol that makes it work versus the generic advice floating around online, is almost never explained correctly. Apple cider vinegar, consumed in small quantities before a carbohydrate-containing meal, has been shown in multiple randomized controlled trials to reduce postprandial glucose by a clinically meaningful margin. A study published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2005 out of Lund University found that vinegar consumed before a high-carbohydrate meal reduced postprandial blood glucose by 23% in healthy adults and by 34% in those with insulin resistance. A 2019 meta-analysis in the Journal of Evidence-Based Integrative Medicine, analyzing 11 randomized controlled trials, confirmed a statistically significant reduction in fasting blood glucose and A1C in individuals with type 2 diabetes who consumed vinegar regularly. The mechanism centers on acetic acid, the primary bioactive compound in vinegar. Acetic acid inhibits alpha amylase and alpha glucosidase, the digestive enzymes responsible for breaking complex carbohydrates into simple glucose. When these enzymes are partially inhibited, carbohydrate digestion slows, and glucose enters the bloodstream more gradually. The pharmaceutical parallel is exact. Acarbose, the prescription alpha-glucosidase inhibitor used to manage postprandial spikes in diabetics, works through this identical mechanism. A month's supply of acarbose costs between $40 and $80. A bottle of apple cider vinegar costs $3.89. The protocol matters here. It is not the generic a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in the morning that circulates on wellness blogs. Research suggests the effective use is 1 to 2 tablespoons diluted in at least 8 ounces of water, consumed 5 to 10 minutes before the highest carbohydrate meal of the day. Consuming it undiluted can damage tooth enamel and the esophageal lining over time. The dilution is not optional. Patricia was 68, a retired school librarian from Albuquerque, New Mexico. She had been pre-diabetic for 6 years, with a fasting glucose consistently between 110 and 125. Her physician had told her repeatedly that she was borderline, and that if she didn't change her lifestyle, she would progress to full diabetes within 3 years. The problem was that nobody ever specified what change your lifestyle meant, beyond a pamphlet about limiting sugar. Patricia began the pre-meal vinegar protocol, consistently for 3 months. When she returned for her annual physical, her fasting glucose had dropped to 98, technically normal. Her A1C had moved from 5.9 to 5.5. Her physician told her she was doing better. She asked if the vinegar had anything to do with it. The physician said they weren't aware of the research. Patricia handed them a printed copy of the Lund University study. They said they would look into it. That exchange captures the problem. The research exists. The mechanism is understood. The cost is negligible, and yet it has never entered the standard of care for pre-diabetic and diabetic patients, because there is no profit in recommending vinegar. Number 4 is the mechanism that, upon first encounter, tends to produce genuine disbelief, because it suggests that the way a food is prepared fundamentally changes its molecular structure in a way that dramatically alters blood sugar response. This is not wellness mythology. This is food chemistry. And the research is exceptionally well documented. Resistant starch is a form of carbohydrate that resists digestion in the small intestine and passes into the large intestine intact, where it is fermented by beneficial bacteria. Unlike regular starch, which is rapidly broken down into glucose and absorbed in the upper digestive tract, resistant starch produces almost no postprandial glucose spike. A 2020 study in Nature Communications, conducted by researchers at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, found that regular consumption of resistant starch reduced average postprandial glucose by 31% and improved insulin sensitivity by 25% over an 8-week period. Here is where the food chemistry becomes extraordinary. Foods that are naturally high in resistant starch, potatoes, rice, oats, legumes, undergo a structural transformation when cooked, cooled, and reheated. During the cooling process, the starch molecules undergo what is called retrogradation. The amylose chains that had been broken apart during cooking rearrange into tightly packed crystalline structures that digestive enzymes cannot break down. These retrograded starches become resistant starch type 3, the most stable and beneficial form. Reheating does not reverse this transformation. A cold potato that has been refrigerated overnight and then reheated the next day has significantly more resistant starch than a freshly cooked potato. The structure has fundamentally changed at the molecular level. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2018 found that retrograded potato consumed the morning after cooking produced a 40% lower blood sugar response compared to freshly prepared potato of identical weight. The same food, prepared differently. A 40% reduction. For adults over 60 who have been told to eliminate potatoes, rice, and bread entirely, this finding changes the conversation completely. These foods can remain in the diet, prepared in ways that fundamentally alter their glycemic impact without any sacrifice of satisfaction or cultural dietary habits. Please take a moment right now to like this video and subscribe. Not for the algorithm, but because engagement is the only tool that gets this information in front of the seniors who need it most. The pharmaceutical-sponsored content has marketing budgets of millions. This channel has the community watching right now. Hit subscribe. Hit like. It matters more than it might seem. Number 3 is the one that most consistently generates disbelief when first explained, not because it is complicated, but because it is so simple that it seems impossible it could have a meaningful effect. Drinking 2 glasses of water 30 minutes before meals has been shown in multiple clinical trials to meaningfully reduce postprandial blood glucose in adults over 60. A 2019 randomized controlled trial published in the Journal of Human Nutrition and Dietetics found that 500 milliliters of water consumed 30 minutes before the main meal reduced postprandial glucose peaks by an average of 16% in adults with type 2 diabetes, with the effect being most pronounced in individuals over 60. The mechanism operates through gastric volume and hormonal signaling simultaneously. Water consumed before a meal occupies gastric space, causing the stomach to release hormones that signal satiety to the brain and slow the progression of food from stomach to small intestine. This delayed gastric emptying extends the window of glucose absorption, reducing the magnitude of the postprandial spike. Additionally, adequate hydration improves kidney filtration of excess glucose, a mechanism that becomes increasingly important as the renal glucose threshold changes with age. For older adults who are frequently mildly dehydrated without realizing it, a common condition in the senior demographic due to diminished thirst sensation, this intervention addresses 2 problems simultaneously. It corrects a baseline hydration deficit and provides glycemic protection before each meal. Robert was 74, a retired civil engineer from Portland, Oregon. He had been on Jardiance for 2 years at a cost of over $500 a month after insurance. His A1C had improved from 9.1 to 7.8 with the medication, but his nephrologist was concerned about his kidney function, a well-documented risk associated with SGLT2 inhibitors over time. He began pre-meal hydration consistently alongside meal sequencing, and within 12 weeks, his postprandial readings had dropped sufficiently that his endocrinologist agreed to reduce his Jardiance dosage. His kidney markers improved. He was not cured, but a free intervention, 2 glasses of water before meals, had materially reduced his dependence on a $500 monthly medication with documented renal risks. That is not a miracle. That is information that should have been given to Robert before the prescription was written. Number 2 is the finding that consistently produces the strongest reaction, because it overturns decades of breakfast advice, the entire cultural understanding of what a healthy morning meal looks like, with extraordinary efficiency. The first meal of the day sets the glycemic tone for the next 12 to 16 hours. This concept, called the second meal effect, was first documented by Dr. David Jenkins at the University of Toronto in the 1980s, but its implications for blood sugar management in older adults were not fully understood until a series of studies published between 2018 and 2023 examined its mechanisms in depth. A 2023 study published in the Journal of Nutrition, conducted by researchers at Tel Aviv University, found that eating a high-protein, low-carbohydrate breakfast, a breakfast centered on eggs, Greek yogurt, nuts, or fish rather than cereal, toast, juice, or oatmeal, reduced postprandial glucose not just after breakfast, but after lunch and dinner as well. The average reduction in post-lunch glucose in the high-protein breakfast group was 22%, despite the lunch being identical across both study groups. The breakfast had changed the metabolic context of the entire day. The mechanism is multi-layered. High-protein breakfast consumption triggers robust GLP-1 and PYY release, hormones that slow gastric emptying and improve insulin sensitivity for hours afterward. Protein consumption in the morning also reduces ghrelin, the hunger hormone, for 4 to 6 hours, preventing the mid-morning glucose crash that typically follows a carbohydrate-heavy breakfast and that drives compensatory snacking behaviors. Additionally, a 2021 study in Cell Metabolism found that the body's insulin sensitivity follows a circadian rhythm, peaking in the morning and declining through the afternoon. Consuming carbohydrates. When insulin sensitivity is highest, maximizes glucose disposal efficiency. But eating protein first ensures that the carbohydrates consumed later in the morning are handled more effectively by the existing insulin sensitivity window. For adults over 60 who have been eating cereal, toast, and orange juice for decades on the advice that these are heart-healthy breakfast choices, this finding is genuinely paradigm-shifting. Orange juice, specifically, is one of the most glycemically destructive foods available in a typical senior's kitchen, high in fructose, devoid of fiber, capable of raising postprandial glucose by 40 to 60 points in insulin-resistant adults within 30 minutes of consumption. The fresh, squeezed, healthy breakfast that has been marketed to the senior demographic for 40 years is, for a diabetic or pre-diabetic individual, functionally indistinguishable from a sugar syrup in its glycemic effect. Please share this video directly with someone managing blood sugar. Not a vague post on social media. A direct message to a spouse, a friend, a sibling. The algorithm will not show them this content unsolicited. The recommendation systems are shaped by advertising dollars, and the advertisers here are pharmaceutical companies with no interest in seniors discovering that breakfast redesign can reduce medication dependence. A direct share from someone trusted is the only way this reaches the people who need it most. Number 1. The intervention that research consistently shows to be the single most powerful daily habit for blood sugar control in adults over 60. More powerful than any supplement studied, more impactful than most pharmaceutical interventions at standard doses. And it requires no food change, no supplements, and no exercise beyond what has already been discussed. Time-restricted eating, specifically confining all food consumption to a 10 to 12-hour window that aligns with daylight hours and completing the final meal of the day at least 3 hours before sleep. A 2022 study published in Cell Metabolism, conducted by researchers at the Salk Institute in California, followed adults with metabolic syndrome through a 14-week time-restricted eating intervention. Participants ate within a 10-hour window without changing what they ate. At the end of 14 weeks, average fasting glucose had dropped by 4%, insulin resistance markers had improved by 11%, and participants reported reduced hunger, improved sleep quality, and greater energy. These results arrived with zero dietary restriction and zero medication change. The evidence specific to adults over 60 is even more compelling. A 2023 study from the University of Adelaide published in Obesity Reviews found that time-restricted eating produced a 36% greater reduction in postprandial glucose in adults over 65 compared to younger adults following identical protocols. Aging bodies appear to respond more, not less, to this intervention. The mechanism connects directly to insulin sensitivity's circadian rhythm. The cells of the human body, muscle cells, fat cells, liver cells, are governed by internal clocks synchronized to the light-dark cycle. Insulin sensitivity is highest in the morning and systematically declines through the afternoon and evening. By 8 or 9 o'clock at night, a person's cells are, from a metabolic perspective, operating in a partially insulin-resistant state regardless of their baseline condition. This is biological design, not dysfunction. The body is preparing for sleep and fasting recovery. Eating a large meal at 10 in the evening, even a healthy meal, floods the bloodstream with glucose at the precise moment when the body is least equipped to dispose of it. The liver absorbs what it can. The rest circulates, elevated for hours through the sleeping night. This is why the fasting glucose reading that patients bring to their physician in the morning is not just a snapshot of overnight metabolism. It is, in large part, a reflection of what time they ate the night before. Eleanor was 76, a retired nurse from Savannah, Georgia, someone who understood medicine, who had spent a career educating patients, and who still could not understand why her own blood sugar refused to improve despite following every standard recommendation. She was waking up with fasting glucose readings between 140 and 160 despite taking metformin, eating a low-carbohydrate diet, and walking 30 minutes daily. Her endocrinologist was considering adding a second medication. A colleague mentioned circadian eating. Eleanor moved her dinner from 8 in the evening to 5:30, stopped all food consumption by 6, and maintained this consistently for 10 weeks. Her fasting glucose dropped to 110 on average. Within 4 months, it was consistently below 100. Her endocrinologist reduced her metformin to the lowest available dose. Eleanor did not change what she ate. She changed when she stopped. The evidence for this intervention is not new, not fringe, and not controversial within nutritional chronobiology research. It has simply never been incorporated into standard diabetes care protocols because there is no mechanism to monetize meal timing. There is no pill, no injection, no subscription involved, and so it remains invisible inside clinics, while billions of dollars are spent annually on pharmaceuticals targeting the same metabolic pathways that a consistent eating window addresses for free. Everything discussed today operates synergistically. These are not 7 independent hacks to pick and choose between. They are components of a single coherent daily system, and the research suggests their combined effect exceeds the sum of their parts. Here is the complete daily protocol. Step 1. Finish the final meal of the day at least 3 hours before sleep and establish a consistent 10 to 12 hour eating window anchored to morning light. Step 2. Build breakfast around protein. Eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, smoked fish, and delay carbohydrate consumption until later in the morning if consumed at all. Step 3. Drink 2 full glasses of water 30 minutes before each major meal. Step 4. Sequence every meal with vegetables first, protein second, carbohydrates last. Step 5. Consume 1 to 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar diluted in 8 ounces of water 5 to 10 minutes before the highest carbohydrate meal. Step 6. Cook starchy foods the day before when possible, refrigerate overnight, and reheat before consumption to increase resistant starch content. Step 7. Walk for 10 minutes within 15 minutes of finishing each main meal. These 7 steps cost nothing. They require no prescription. They do not replace existing medication. Any change to medication should be discussed with a physician who has seen the blood sugar improvements these habits produce. What they do is address the root mechanisms of postprandial blood sugar dysregulation with the same precision that pharmaceutical interventions target, and in many cases, through the same biological pathways. If this video changed the understanding of what is possible without another prescription, please leave a comment below saying I'm starting today. Because that comment tells others watching that this information is actionable, that real people are acting on it, that the community here is moving. Subscribe if not already subscribed. Share this video with the specific person in mind, the one managing blood sugar right now without being told any of this. That share is the most powerful thing that can happen in the next 60 seconds. And next, watch the video about the 7 breakfast foods that spike blood sugar worse than candy, including one that most people eat every single morning believing it is actively protecting their heart. Number 3 on that list will be genuinely difficult to accept. But it is documented, peer-reviewed, and important to know. Watch it next. This content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider before making changes to diet, lifestyle, or medication regimens.